My sister's husband died in a hunting accident, and his best friend stepped in to help, but something felt wrong about how quick he proposed. When I started asking questions, he turned my entire family against me, so I spent years gathering evidence that revealed a devastating truth. I was fast asleep at 3 a.m. when my sister called me sobbing so hard she couldn't breathe. Her husband James was dead, hunting accident. His best friend Connor tried everything, held pressure on the wound before help arrived, but the bullet had hit an artery. By the time I got there, Lily was sitting on their kitchen floor in blood-soaked pajamas, rocking back and forth. Connor stood behind her, still in his hunting gear, his hand on her shoulder. "Wrong place, wrong time," he kept saying. Some idiot shooting where he shouldn't have been. 7 months later, Connor proposed to Lily at our family BBQ. James would have wanted this, he announced, sliding James's grandmother's ring onto her finger. The same ring James had shown me the week before he died, planning to upgrade it for their 5th anniversary. Lily said yes while tears streamed down her face. My parents clapped. Mom wiped happy tears. "It's like something out of a movie," she gushed. Best friends, and Connor stepping up to take care of her. Connor moved in the next week. Not just moved in, took over. James's baseball trophies went in the garage. His grandfather's tool set got donated. The kitchen Lily had painted yellow because James loved sunflowers got redone in gray. "Fresh start," Connor explained, his arm tight around Lily's waist. "Can't live in the past." My dad thought Connor was a saint. Not many men would take on another man's widow, he'd say. When I pointed out Lily had lost 15 pounds, Mom said grief affected everyone differently. When I mentioned the bruises on her arms, they said she'd always been clumsy. They were too busy planning the wedding to notice Lily flinching every time Connor raised his voice, so I pretended everything was fine. I smiled while helping pack James's clothes for Goodwill, secretly pocketing his favorite watch when Connor wasn't looking to give Lily later. I took their engagement photos while Lily gripped Connor's hand with white knuckles. I even went dress shopping and bit my tongue when Connor insisted on approving every dress because I'm paying for it. But late at night, I'd catch Lily in her car, staring at her phone. She still had James's number saved with a heart emoji. Their last text exchange from that morning: "Love you, baby. Bag a big one. Love you more. Dinner at 7? Connor tried being James, but got it all wrong. Where James cooked Lily's grandmother's recipes from memory, Connor ordered pizza. Where James left post-it love notes, Connor left lists of chores. Where James called her sunshine, Connor just said babe, like she was anyone. He even started using James's coffee mug, the one Lily had made him in pottery class that said, "World's okayest hunter." Everything exploded on a Thursday in October. James's birthday was coming up. He would have been 34. Lily quietly mentioned wanting to visit his grave, maybe bring his mom who'd been asking to go together. It was the first thing she'd asked for in months. Connor's fork stopped halfway to his mouth. "That's the weekend of my brother's bachelor party in Vegas." His voice had that edge that made my stomach drop. "Already bought your ticket." "I just thought," Lily started. "You thought wrong." Connor's hand landed heavy on her shoulder. "I held my best friend while he died. You think I want to spend my weekend crying at a cemetery?" My parents immediately took Connor's side. "You need to move forward, honey," Mom said. "Connor deserves a fiancé who's present." Dad offered to go to Vegas with them, make it a family trip. That night, I heard the fight through my apartment's thin walls. They lived right next door. Connor's voice booming, something breaking, then silence. The next morning, Lily wore a turtleneck to cover the handprint on her throat and robotically agreed Vegas sounded fun. I lost it. Tried filing a police report, but they said without Lily's cooperation, nothing could be done. Called James's parents, but Connor had already told them I was trying to break them up out of jealousy. Even reached out to Lily's best friend, but Connor had convinced everyone I was the problem. Finally, I remembered Dave, James's hunting buddy who'd moved away right after the funeral. Took me weeks to track him down. When I showed up at his door, he went white. "I can't talk about it. Please," I begged. "Lily's in trouble." Dave let me in, hands shaking. Connor wasn't supposed to be in that area. He begged James for weeks to let him come on the trip. James kept saying no, said Connor had been acting weird about Lily. He disappeared upstairs and came back with a shoebox. James left this with me the week before, said if anything happened. Inside was James's journal, bank statements showing Connor had massive gambling debts, and printed emails between Connor and Lily that she'd never seen, sent from spoofed addresses. "There's one more thing," Dave said, pulling out his phone. "James sent me this voicemail the night before the trip. What I heard next made me realize Lily had been living with a monster, and I was going to make him pay." James's voice came through Dave's phone speaker, shaky and urgent. "Dave, if you get this, Connor's been following Lily. I found GPS trackers on her car. He's got copies of our house keys I never gave him. I'm scared what he'll do if I confront him directly. Going hunting tomorrow but keeping my distance from him. Just need you to know in case." The message cut off. My hands trembled as Dave took the phone back. Everything clicked into place. The hunting accident. Connor's immediate takeover. His obsession with controlling every aspect of Lily's life. I grabbed the shoebox and ran to my car. Dave called after me, but I couldn't stop. My sister was living with James's killer. Racing home, I called Marcus, my ex who worked in IT security. He picked up on the third ring. I explained everything while weaving through traffic. Marcus agreed to help extract data from James's devices if I could get them. I burst into my apartment and immediately heard Connor's voice through the wall. He was on the phone, laughing about Vegas plans. My skin crawled knowing what he'd done. I texted Lily asking if she wanted coffee. She responded that Connor had her phone, but she'd be at the grocery store later. Classic Connor, monitoring her messages. While waiting, I photographed every document from Dave's shoebox. The gambling debts totaled over $40,000. The fake emails showed Connor had been impersonating James for months, creating fights that never happened. At the grocery store, I found Lily in the cereal aisle. She looked smaller than ever, drowning in one of James's old hoodies that Connor hadn't thrown out yet. When she saw me, her eyes darted around nervously. I hugged her and felt her ribs through the fabric. She pulled away quickly, glancing glancing toward the entrance. I slipped James's watch into her pocket and whispered that I knew the truth about Connor. Her face went white. She shook her head frantically and pushed past me, but I saw her fingers close around the watch. That evening, Connor knocked on my door. He filled the door frame, all fake concern and practiced charm. He mentioned that Lily seemed upset after our encounter. His eyes were cold as he reminded me about boundaries and respecting their relationship. After he left, I called the police again. The officer sounded bored until I mentioned the voicemail. He agreed to have a detective contact me, but warned it could take weeks without Lily's cooperation. I couldn't wait weeks. I spent the night creating a timeline. James's death. Connor's debts mysteriously paid off 2 weeks later. The life insurance payout that went to Lily but that Connor now controlled. The way he'd isolated her from everyone who might help. The next morning, I waited outside Connor's gym. When he went in, I had 90 minutes. I let myself into their apartment with my spare key. The place felt different, darker. All of James's warmth had been stripped away. I found his laptop hidden in a closet box labeled Christmas decorations. Connor had missed it. I grabbed it along with some hidden USB drives and James's backup phone from inside an old shoe. As I turned to leave, I noticed Lily's purse on the counter. Her phone was inside. I quickly checked it. Connor had installed tracking software and monitoring apps. Every text, every call, every location logged. I took photos of everything. Back at my apartment, Marcus worked his magic on James's devices while I built our case. The laptop contained security footage from their doorbell camera. Dozens of clips showing Connor arriving when James wasn't home. Connor testing keys. Connor following Lily to her yoga class. Then Marcus found something that made my blood run cold. Browser history showing Connor had researched hunting accidents, bullet trajectories, how long someone could survive different wounds, all dated 2 weeks before James died. I was organizing everything when Lily knocked on my door. She was crying, holding James's watch. Connor had found it. She collapsed on my couch, finally ready to talk. The stories poured out. How Connor had been there every time James traveled for work. How he'd convinced her that James was cheating, showing her the fake emails. How after James died, Connor told her she was lucky he was willing to take damaged goods. The bruises, the control, the threats that if she left, no one would believe her over the grieving best friend who'd tried to save her husband. I showed her everything we'd found. She stared at the evidence of her husband's unaliver, her whole body shaking. Then she said something that changed everything. She pulled out her phone and showed me a recording app hidden inside what looked like a calculator. She'd been documenting Connor's abuse for months. Audio files of him admitting he'd always wanted her, that James didn't deserve her, that things worked out perfectly. We had him. I convinced Lily to pack a bag and stay with me. We'd go to the police in the morning with everything. But as she gathered her things next door, my phone buzzed. Connor had posted on Facebook a photo of him and Lily, announcing they were eloping in Vegas that weekend instead of waiting. Life's too short, the caption read. James would want us to be happy now. My blood turned to ice. He knew. Somehow, he knew we were onto him. Lily burst back through my door, panicked. Connor had texted that he'd moved their flight to tonight. He was coming home early to pack. We had minutes to decide. Run and hope the police believed us later, or stay and risk whatever Connor had planned. That's when we heard his truck pull into the parking lot. I grabbed Lily's arm and pulled her toward my bedroom window. Connor's footsteps echoed on the stairs outside. We climbed out onto the fire escape just as his key turned in her apartment lock. My hands shook as I helped Lily down the metal ladder. We ran to Marcus's car parked behind the building. I'd texted him our emergency code earlier. He already had the engine running. Lily dove into the back seat while I jumped in front. Connor's shouts erupted from the apartment above as Marcus peeled out of the parking lot. Marcus drove us to his cousin's empty cabin 40 minutes outside town. During the drive, I uploaded all our evidence to 3 different cloud services and emailed copies to trusted friends with instructions to release everything if we disappeared. Lily sat frozen in the back seat, clutching her packed bag. At the cabin, we barricaded ourselves inside and called the police. The detective who answered took our information and promised to send officers to investigate. 2 hours passed with no word. I called back. The dispatcher said no detective by that name worked there. Connor had anticipated this move. My phone exploded with messages. Mom demanded to know where we were. Dad threatened to call the police himself if we didn't bring Lily back immediately. Connor had already spun his story. His unstable sister-in-law had kidnapped his traumatized fiancé. I showed Lily the messages. She grabbed my phone and called Mom directly. I watched her try to explain about the abuse, the evidence, James's unaliving. Mom's voice carried through the speaker, dismissive and angry. When Lily mentioned the bruises, Mom reminded her how clumsy she'd always been. When she brought up the recordings, Mom accused me of manipulating a grieving widow. Lily hung up and threw my phone across the room. It shattered against the wall. Marcus left to buy supplies and a burner phone. While he was gone, we heard vehicles approaching. Lily and I hid in the bedroom closet as 2 police cruisers pulled up outside. Through the slats, I watched officers knock on the door. They left after 10 minutes, but I knew they'd be back. When Marcus returned, he brought news that made everything worse. Connor had filed a missing person report for Lily, claiming she was Sewerslidal. He'd produced a forged Sewerslide note in her handwriting. The entire police department was looking for us now, but not to help. We needed to get our evidence to someone who would listen. Marcus suggested driving to the FBI office in the city, 3 hours away. But first, we needed to document everything properly. I used Marcus's laptop to organize our files while Lily wrote out a detailed statement of the abuse. As she wrote, more memories surfaced. Connor had made her sign papers she didn't understand. Power of attorney documents. Changes to her will. She'd been too medicated and grief-stricken to question it. Everything she and James had built together was now under Connor's control. The burner phone rang. Dave's number appeared on the screen. His voice shook as he warned us that Connor had visited him. Connor knew about the shoebox. He wanted it back. Dave had hidden it with his brother, but Connor would find it eventually. I made a decision that would haunt me. I told Dave to give Connor a fake location, to buy us time. Dave agreed, though we both knew what Connor might do when he discovered the deception. Night fell. We couldn't stay at the cabin much longer. Marcus mapped out a route to the FBI office that avoided main highways. Lily sat at the kitchen table staring at her wedding ring. She pulled it off and set it on the table, then removed James's ring from her other hand and held it tight. The burner phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. A photo of my apartment. Police tape across the door. Another text. They found substances in your apartment. Come home and explain. Connor had planted evidence. I felt the walls closing in. Every move we made, he'd anticipated. Every escape route, he'd blocked. But we still had the recordings, the documentation, James's own investigation. We just needed to get it to the right people. Marcus started packing up our evidence when headlights swept across the windows. Not police cruisers this time. Connor's truck. He'd found us. We grabbed what we could and ran out the back door into the woods. Connor's voice echoed behind us, calling Lily's name, playing the concerned fiancé. My feet slipped on wet leaves as we crashed through the underbrush. Lily fell, scraping her knee badly. Marcus helped her up and we kept running. We emerged on a dirt road where Marcus had hidden his backup car earlier, paranoid but prepared. As we drove away, I saw Connor's silhouette at the forest edge, watching us leave. He didn't chase us. He didn't need to. The FBI office was closed when we arrived at 2 a.m. We slept in the car in the parking garage, taking shifts keeping watch. Lily woke up screaming from nightmares twice. I held her while she shook, both of us remembering James's laugh, his terrible dad jokes, the way he'd dance with Lily in the kitchen while dinner cooked. Morning brought new problems. The news ran our photos as missing persons at risk. Connor gave a tearful interview about his desperate search for his fiancée and her disturbed sister. He held up their engagement photo, his voice breaking as he begged Lily to come home. We walked into the FBI office anyway. The receptionist recognized us immediately and called security. We had 5 minutes to convince someone to look at our evidence before local police arrived. An agent named Victoria listened, her face skeptical until she heard the recordings. She took our evidence and promised to investigate, but warned us we'd need to turn ourselves in to local authorities. The police station felt like walking into Connor's trap. Officers separated us immediately. I was processed for kidnapping, substance possession, and filing false reports. They wouldn't tell me where they took Lily. My court-appointed lawyer looked exhausted and unconvinced as I explained our story. 2 days in holding taught me how the system worked. Connor had connections everywhere. Guards mentioned his donations to the police benevolent fund. Other inmates whispered about his gambling connections, people who made problems disappear. Even here, his reach extended. My lawyer brought news that made me vomit. Lily had recanted everything. She'd signed a statement saying I'd manipulated her during a vulnerable time. Connor had dropped all charges in exchange for a restraining order against me. She was back home with him. I knew he'd threatened her, probably showed her what he could do to me if she didn't comply. But knowing didn't make it hurt less. The system designed to protect victims had become Connor's weapon. Marcus bailed me out with money he couldn't afford to lose. His ex-wife had already filed for emergency custody of their daughter. Helping us had cost him everything. I wanted to tell him to walk away, but I needed him. The selfishness of survival overruled my conscience. We drove past Lily's house despite the restraining order. Connor's truck sat in the driveway next to a new security system installation van. He was fortifying his position. Through the window, I glimpsed Lily sitting at the kitchen table, still as a statue. Agent Victoria called that night. The FBI had opened an investigation, but it would take months. Connor's lawyer had already filed complaints about harassment from federal agents. Without Lily's cooperation, building a case would be nearly impossible. She suggested we lay low and let them work, but I couldn't wait months. Every day Lily spent in that house brought her closer to becoming another statistic. I started following Connor, learning his routines. He went to the gym every morning, had lunch at the same restaurant, attended Rotary Club meetings where everyone treated him like a hero for standing by Lily. One evening, I watched him meet with a woman at a coffee shop. She looked nervous, kept glancing around. I recognized her from social media, Connor's ex-girlfriend from college. They talked for an hour. She slid an envelope across the table. Connor pocketed it and left. The woman sat there crying after he gone. I approached her carefully. She tried to run, but I mentioned Lily's name. That stopped her. We sat in her car while she told me about Connor's patterns, the escalating control, the gaslighting, the night she'd tried to leave and woke up in the hospital with no memory of how she got there. She'd been paying him to stay away ever since. She gave me the name of another ex, then another. A pattern emerged spanning 15 years. Women who'd dated Connor and then disappeared from social media, moved away suddenly, changed their names, all too scared to talk to police. I was building a timeline when Marcus called. Lily had been admitted to the hospital. OD. Connor was playing the devastated fiancé in the waiting room, telling everyone how hard he'd tried to help her through her depression. The restraining order meant I couldn't go to her. I sent Marcus instead. He texted updates from the hallway. Lily was stable but unconscious. Connor never left her side, the devoted partner. When she woke up, she asked for me. Connor told the nurses I was dangerous. They restricted her visitors to family only. Mom finally called me that night. Her voice sounded different, broken. She'd gone to see Lily and noticed bruises that couldn't be explained away. Fresh ones. Connor's story about Lily's clumsiness was wearing thin, but she still couldn't accept the truth about James's death. That was too much. I convinced Mom to get Lily alone for 5 minutes, to pass along a message. Pine Ridge Trail, Tuesday, dawn. The place where James died, where everything started. Connor would be at his weekly breakfast meeting. I'd have one chance to show Lily we could still fight back. Marcus thought I was crazy. Agent Victoria warned me not to interfere with the investigation, but I'd found something in James's files that changed everything. Photos from a hunting trip 2 years before he died. Connor in the background of several shots, at a different campsite, watching them. He'd been planning this for years. Tuesday came gray and drizzling. I parked at the trailhead and waited. Part Part of me expected police, or Connor, or nothing at all. Then Lily's car appeared through the mist. She got out slowly, moving like something hurt. We stood 10 feet apart, the restraining order technically keeping us separated even here. She looked hollow, thinner than ever, but her eyes held something new. Rage. She'd found more evidence hidden in James's things. Insurance documents Connor had forged. Plans to sell their house and move to Vegas permanently. A life insurance policy on her that Connor had purchased last month. We couldn't speak directly, but we could both talk to the trees, to James, to the air between us. I told the forest about the ex-girlfriends, the pattern, the FBI investigation. Lily told the rain about the pills Connor put in her drinks, the way he'd practiced crying for his police interview, how he'd shown her photos of what happened to his ex's brother who'd tried to intervene. A branch snapped behind us. We both turned, expecting Connor. Instead, Dave emerged from the trail. He'd been following Connor too, watching, waiting. He showed us trail cam footage from the day James died, Connor leaving his assigned hunting area, moving toward James's position. The timestamp showed he'd lied about when everything happened. We had him. Finally, we had him. But Connor had anticipated this too. Police sirens echoed through the valley. He'd reported his truck stolen and tracked it here. Dave ran for his car while Lily and I split up. I crashed through the woods, branches tearing at my clothes. Behind me, officers called out warnings. I made it to Marcus's hidden car and drove back roads to Agent Victoria's office. She wasn't happy to see me, but the trail cam footage changed her expression. This was evidence of premeditation. Proof Connor had hunted James like prey. The FBI could move forward now. Everything accelerated. Federal agents interviewed the ex-girlfriends. They subpoenaed Connor's financial records, the gambling debts tied to dangerous people who'd been paid off with James's life insurance. A forensic accountant found the money trail. Connor had been planning this since college, when he'd first met Lily at a party and watched her choose James instead. But Connor had one more play. He married Lily in a rushed ceremony at the courthouse. Spousal privilege meant she couldn't testify against him. He'd found a judge who owed him favors, got the license pushed through despite the ongoing investigation. Mom called me sobbing. She'd tried to stop it, but Connor had convinced Lily it was the only way to keep me from destroying their lives. The prosecutor explained our options. Without Lily's testimony, the case was circumstantial, strong, but not guaranteed. Connor's lawyer was already filing motions to dismiss based on technicalities. The trail cam footage might be inadmissible. The ex-girlfriends could be painted as jealous liars. We needed something ironclad. That's when I remembered the memory cards, the ones in James's photography equipment that Connor didn't know about. Lily had mentioned them during our forest meeting. If we could get them, there might be more evidence. But they were in the house Connor now controlled completely. Marcus had an idea. His cousin worked for the moving company Connor had hired to pack up James's remaining belongings for donation. We could intercept the boxes during transport. It was illegal. It was dangerous. It was our only shot. The morning of the move, I waited in a rental car down the street. Marcus's cousin would signal when they loaded the photography equipment. My hands shook on the steering wheel. If this went wrong, I'd spend years in prison. But James deserved justice. Lily deserved freedom. The moving truck pulled out at noon. I followed at a distance, waiting for the predetermined stop, but the truck never stopped. It drove straight to the donation center where Connor stood waiting. He'd known. Somehow, he'd known. I watched from across the street as Connor personally went through every box. He found the memory cards and pocketed them. Then he looked directly at my car and smiled. A security guard approached my vehicle. I drove away, defeated. That night, everything unraveled. The FBI's key witness, Connor's ex-girlfriend, recanted her statement. The trail cam footage was ruled inadmissible due to a warrant issue. The financial records showed suspicious activity, but nothing definitively linking Connor to unalive. One by one, our evidence crumbled under legal scrutiny. Agent Victoria called with worse news. Connor's lawyer had filed harassment charges against the FBI. Political pressure was mounting to drop the investigation. Without new evidence, they'd have to close the case within days. She apologized. She believed us. But belief wasn't enough. I sat in Marcus's apartment, staring at the wall where I'd pinned up our timeline. Every connection, every piece of evidence, every small victory that had led nowhere. Marcus was packing his things. His ex-wife had won full custody. He was moving closer to his daughter, leaving town. I didn't blame him. The burner phone rang one last time. Lily's voice, barely a whisper. She was pregnant. Connor was ecstatic, already planning their future. She couldn't leave now, couldn't risk what he might do. She wanted me to know she was sorry, that she loved me, that she'd name the baby James if it was a boy. The line went dead. I threw the phone in the trash and started packing my own things. Sometimes the monster wins, sometimes the system fails, sometimes love isn't enough to save someone. But as I packed, I found one last thing. A USB drive James had hidden in the lining of an old camera bag I'd saved. It contained everything. Videos of Connor admitting his obsession, plans for the hunting, accident, proof of the gambling debts. James had known he might die and prepared accordingly. I drove straight to Agent Victoria's home. Screw protocol. Screw the proper channels that Connor had corrupted. She answered the door in pajamas, saw my face, and let me in. We watched the videos together. Her expression hardened with each revelation. This was it. The smoking firearm. Indisputable proof that Connor had murdered James. That he'd planned it for years. That Lily was in immediate danger. Victoria made calls, woke up judges, set the machinery in motion for an emergency arrest warrant. Dawn broke as federal agents surrounded Connor's house. I waited down the street, my heart pounding. This had to work. It was our last chance. Connor emerged in handcuffs, his face calm. He looked toward my car and nodded, like this was just another move in our game. But Lily didn't come out. Agents searched the house. She was gone. Her car was there. Her clothes. Everything except her. Connor smiled as they put him in the car. He'd anticipated this too. Hidden her somewhere. One final move to maintain control. The interrogation lasted hours. Connor's lawyer arrived within minutes, but it didn't matter. The evidence was overwhelming. He'd be charged with first-degree unaliving, but he wouldn't tell them where Lily was. Claimed she'd left voluntarily, needed space from her toxic family. I knew better. Connor had contingency plans for his contingency plans. Lily was somewhere he could control her even from prison, somewhere she couldn't testify, somewhere she'd wait, pregnant and terrified, for him to find a way out. The FBI searched his properties, his connections. Every lead went cold. Days passed. Connor sat in federal custody, silent and smirking. His lawyer filed motions, made deals, hinted that Lily's location could be negotiated if charges were reduced. That's when Dave called. He'd been thinking like James, like a hunter. Where would Connor hide something precious, somewhere significant, somewhere that meant something to him? Dave had an idea, but we'd need to move fast. Dave's idea led us to Connor's childhood home, abandoned for years but still in his name. The property sat 40 miles north, hidden by overgrown trees. Marcus drove while I studied satellite images on his phone. A storm cellar showed recent disturbance in the dirt around its entrance. Federal agents met us at the property line. They'd obtained a warrant based on the new evidence. I watched from behind the police tape as they approached the cellar. Connor's lawyer arrived within minutes, demanding to see paperwork. The lead agent ignored him and signaled the team forward. They found Lily unconscious on a cot, dehydrated but alive. An IV drip hung from a makeshift stand. Bottles of prenatal vitamins sat on a shelf next to enough food for weeks. Connor had prepared this hideout months ago, maybe longer. Medical equipment filled one corner. He'd planned to keep her here until the trial ended. The ambulance rushed Lily to the hospital while agents documented everything. They found journals detailing Connor's obsession dating back to college, photos of Lily taken without her knowledge over 15 years, plans for their life together written before James even died. The cellar walls held maps marking locations where he'd followed her. At the hospital, doctors confirmed Lily and the baby were stable. She'd been sedated but not harmed. Connor had hired a nurse to check on her twice daily, someone who believed she was caring for a woman with severe mental illness. The nurse broke down when agents explained the truth. Mom arrived at the hospital and collapsed when she saw Lily. Dad held her while she sobbed apologies. They'd enabled Connor, welcomed him into their family, chosen him over their own daughters. The weight of their choices crushed them. Dad aged 10 years in 10 minutes. Lily woke slowly, confused and terrified. When she saw me through the doorway, she reached out despite the restraining order. The federal prosecutor immediately filed to have it dismissed given the circumstances. Within hours, a judge granted the motion. I sat beside Lily's bed while she processed everything. She remembered Connor forcing pills down her throat, the drive to the cellar, him explaining how she'd stay there until he could fix things, his promise that their baby would have the life he'd planned. She touched her stomach, feeling the life growing inside her. Connor's final trap. The prosecutor visited with options. Connor's charges now included kidnapping, false imprisonment, and attempted unaliving of a federal witness. With Lily's testimony and the cellar evidence, conviction was certain, but she'd have to relive everything in court, face him again, hear his lawyer tear her apart. Lily agreed immediately. She wanted everyone to know what Connor really was. The trial date was set for 6 weeks out. Connor's lawyer filed for delays, but the judge denied them all. The evidence was too damaging. Public opinion had shifted. Connor's supporters disappeared overnight. During those 6 weeks, we prepared. Lily moved in with me temporarily. We installed new locks, security cameras, panic buttons. The FBI assigned protection details after Connor's gambling associates made threats. These weren't movie villains, just local criminals worried about their debts being exposed. Marcus found a new job near his daughter, but stayed to help us prepare. He'd lost custody, but gained something else, the knowledge he'd done the right thing. His daughter would understand someday. He digitized all our evidence and created backup systems Connor's people couldn't touch. Dave testified in pretrial hearings about James's fears. He brought more evidence, recordings James had made, photos of Connor stalking Lily, proof of the gambling debts. Each piece built an unbreakable case. Connor's lawyer tried attacking Dave's credibility, but facts were facts. Mom and Dad sold their house to pay for Lily's legal fees. They moved into a small apartment, their retirement savings gone. Mom joined a support group for families of abuse victims. Dad volunteered at a domestic violence shelter. They couldn't undo their mistakes, but they could try to help others. The trial began on a cold Monday. The courthouse filled with locals who'd known James, who'd believed Connor's lies, who needed to see justice done. Lily testified for 3 days. She detailed the abuse, the manipulation, the slow realization that Connor had unalived her husband. Her voice never wavered. Connor watched her with the same calm expression he'd worn during his arrest. But when prosecutors played his cellar journals aloud, something cracked. The jury heard his fantasies about Lily, his rage at James for stealing her, his detailed unaliving plans. His lawyer objected repeatedly, but the evidence stood. The forensics expert testified about the shooting angle. The financial investigator exposed the money trail. Each of Connor's ex-girlfriends took the stand, describing patterns of abuse spanning decades. The nurse who'd cared for Lily in the cellar sobbed through her testimony. Connor's defense relied on painting him as mentally ill, driven by grief over his best friend's death. They claimed the journals were fantasy, the kidnapping a misguided attempt to protect Lily. But when Connor took the stand, his arrogance destroyed him. He couldn't help correcting the prosecutor about details only the killer would know. The jury deliberated for 2 hours, guilty on all charges, life without parole. Connor showed no emotion as they led him away. His lawyer promised appeals, but everyone knew it was over. The gambling associates he'd worried about testifying against him were arrested within days. Lily filed for divorce immediately. The marriage was annulled due to fraud and coercion. She reclaimed her maiden name and James's life insurance. The house sold quickly. She donated Connor's belongings to the same charity that had received James's things, closing that circle. 3 months later, Lily gave birth to a daughter. She named her Jamie. I was there, holding Lily's hand while she brought new life into the world. The baby had Connor's eyes, but Lily's smile. Nature versus nurture would be Lily's challenge, but she was ready. We found an apartment in a different state where nobody knew our story. Lily started therapy twice a week. I got a job at a local marketing firm. Marcus visited monthly, slowly rebuilding his relationship with his daughter through supervised visits. Dave moved closer, becoming the uncle Jamie would need. Mom and Dad visited for Jamie's first birthday. They'd aged, but found peace in their support group work. Mom held her granddaughter while tears streamed down her face. Dad played peekaboo, making Jamie giggle. They'd never fully forgive themselves, but they were trying. Agent Victoria sent updates about Connor's appeals, all denied. He'd been placed in solitary after attacking another inmate who mentioned Lily. His fantasy world had finally collapsed. He'd spend his remaining years alone with his obsession, while Lily built a real life. 2 years passed. Lily met someone at grief counseling, a widower who understood loss without trying to fix it. They took things slowly. He knew our whole story and didn't run. When he proposed, he asked my permission first, understanding I'd always be protective. I walked Lily down the aisle at her small wedding. 20 guests, no fanfare, just people who'd stood by us. She wore a simple dress and James's watch on a chain around her neck. When she said I do, she meant it. This time, she was choosing freely. Jamie started preschool. The teachers didn't know her father was in prison for unaliving. She was just another kid learning to share and count. Lily volunteered at the school, building a normal life through small daily choices. Some nights she still woke up screaming, but those grew rarer. I found my own peace in routine. Work, dinner with Lily's family twice a week, Sunday hikes with Dave. We didn't talk about Connor anymore. He'd stolen enough of our lives. James's grave got fresh flowers monthly, but we visited less often. The dead deserve remembrance, not obsession. 5 years after the trial, a letter arrived from Connor. Lily burned it unopened. Whatever he had to say didn't matter. She was teaching Jamie to ride a bike in the park, her husband cheering them on. That was her response. A life fully lived, despite everything. Marcus's daughter started high school. She'd written an essay about her dad standing up to a killer, helping save a family. He'd cried when she showed him, finally understanding his sacrifice had meant something. They had joint custody now, rebuilding slowly but surely. The community where it all happened moved on. Connor's house sold to a young family who painted it yellow. The hunting grounds became a nature preserve in James's memory. The Rotary Club disbanded, reformed under new leadership. People learned, grew, chose better. Sometimes I dream about that night Connor proposed to Lily, how different things might have been if I'd spoken up immediately. But trauma doesn't follow scripts. We survived the only way we could. Imperfectly, messily, together. Connor sits in a cell. We live in the sun. Lily keeps one photo from before. James laughing at some joke, carefree and alive. It sits on her mantle next to pictures of her new family. Not a shrine, just acknowledgement. The past happened. It shaped us, but it doesn't own us anymore.